Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and today I'm here to talk to you about all of the games that we got in October. So this is our library update. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in, first starting with all of our new upgrades. So the first upgrade that we got has to be from the Dollar Tree, and this is going to be just a bunch of these containers. I really like using containers and organizers and Plano boxes in all of the organization systems that we have. It's so much easier to just lift open a single lid as opposed to dumping lots of bags out. I strongly recommend that if you haven't, take a look at our organizing videos and see how we use these. They're extremely cheap, $1 a piece, and I really like these because they're very small and it's easy to scoop things out of them. So that works really well, especially if you want to divide the components and put them on separate sides of the table. It works really well, and I really like these small ones. Don't worry, I'll leave links in the description below. So Dollar Tree organizers, fantastic. The next upgrade we got is a playmat for Nemesis. This was included with the lockdown order, and so this came before everything else, but this is really nice. All it is a double-sided playmat. It's basically the board, and it just functions extremely nicely. It's nice to push these large pieces on here, and it just elevates that game experience. So super excited. This is a great one to play on. We've played a couple games on it already. Super, super cool. Now it's time to talk about the new games and expansions that entered the library, and the first one is Annihilation from Marvel Legendary. Now what this does is it features lots of more the Fantastic Four characters. It has a whole set that's the Fantastic Four United. That's really cool. It's a lot of variants from their original sets, which is cool. You kind of get the whole feeling of them in one package, so I really like this, especially the Invisible Woman card. It kind of harkens back to her ability getting to get rid of cards and rescuing bystanders from your pile. She's just extremely strong, so it's nice to see her here. And then it also repeats the focus mechanic. Now I really like the focus mechanic. It allows you to channel your stars into these super powerful effects, and it's just a lot of fun. It pairs well with a lot of characters that generate lots of stars, and so it can be your big heavy hitters. So I really like that, and the new villains and the new mechanics are really fun. It's got King the Conqueror in it, which is great, and of course the titular Annihilus. Great expansion, having a lot of fun with this one. That's Marvel Legendary Annihilation. Up next, we have Tsukuyumi Full Moon Down, a recent Kickstarter delivery. This is the second edition with miniatures, and I have a very different relationship with this one. I think the solo mode, the cooperative mode, and then the 3+ player modes are all not very good. I think that there's a lot of issues, particularly in just the core systems and the scoring. I think that there's a lot of big problems because really all you need to do is control areas on the map because that's the highest yield of points, and that affects every single part of the game, which is really unfortunate because it really kind of ruins the system. That being said, the 2-player of this game is absolutely amazing because they change the actual scoring goals. So each character has their own, each faction is completely asymmetric, and each of those factions has their own scoring objectives that's different, and that's going to make you play the game completely differently and have you using the cards interestingly, the events, all sorts of things. Pretty dang fantastic. So I like this 2-player experience a lot, good enough so where it's actually going to be staying in the library. So kind of crazy because the other modes are not good. So this is wild to me. But the addition is cool, and particularly we also received the expansion content, which introduces more factions. Unfortunately, some of them can't be used in the 2-player mode, particularly the Jade Sentinels and then some of the extra powers for the multiplayer games. But there are some really cool things that you can incorporate, including the event cards that are the Kickstarter exclusive events. And I recommend that if you are going to hunt down this game, make sure you get the Kickstarter exclusives because those event cards are so important. They've got the faction-specific events, so that way when you're playing you have even more asymmetry, and it adds to the fun, because another big critique I had with the original game was that the event cards were not good, like at all, and you really didn't want to draw them. There was no reason to, because the effects were so minor that you're kind of wasting your own time drawing these. And then some of them, I think there were 2 cards of the entire deck that were actually useful, so if you drew those, it was just extremely lucky out of this like 50-card deck. One was a combat, one was a move. Everything else was very negligible. So that is that, and that's my opinions on Tsukuyumi Full Moon Down. Fantastic 2-player experience, but I will not be playing solo, cooperative, or 3+. The next game that arrived in the library is Ginkgopolis. This is an engine-building game of area control, where you're going to be using these cards to place out tiles and control markers on all of these different areas on a board. You either build up or you build out. Now, the cards in this system are really fun. Whenever you build over a card, the card you built with is going to go in front of you as an engine of some sort. You have cards that give you points based on your control markers or your engine that you've actually created, and then you have cards that are going to trigger whenever you do a specific action. Like this one here says, whenever you build out. And I really, really like this system. It makes a lot of sense, and my goodness, the table presence is gorgeous. I love how it works. I love the simplicity of it, and I love how you're constantly doing things and planning things. I love the drafting system. Each player is going to have 4 cards that they're going to pick from, and then they pass it all to the left, and that just keeps on going. So you're consistently knowing what your opponents can potentially do, and there's a single bit of randomness that gets introduced. So you are kind of playing with this anticipation of future events. So I really, really like this system. That is Ginkgopolis. The next game is Oriflamme. Oriflamme is a very cute queue system game, so what you're going to be doing is placing cards in this queue, and after you place a card, you have the choice to either leave it face down and it'll collect victory points, or you flip it up and you can use its effect. So you've got these cool choices onto whether or not you want to be flipping to gain lots of points, because there are even extra cards that will double the amount of points on a card, and there are some cards that if you flip them, they have really powerful effects when they're actually flipped. They might have effects where they can kill cards that are next to them, and you get a point whenever you kill something, or they might be able to generate victory points while they're face up. So it's a neat little system here, and I really like that there's a card that actually punishes you if you kill it while it's face down. So it gives you, every time you're kind of worried about potentially triggering that effect. So I like how there's some tension there. Now that being said, we also picked up the standalone expansion in the form of Oriflamme Ablaze, which is basically the exact same game, but the effects of the cards are drastically different. It introduces new cards that require tokens, it introduces new ways to really manipulate the queuing system, and it's just a lot of very cool effects. So I'm actually pretty impressed with this expansion. I think that if you're a fan of the base game, get this one. I don't think you should start here. I think that it definitely is more of an expansion in my opinion, and it does have a cool way that you can combine the two games as well. I think the roles are very different, with all feeling like they exist in the same space, but they make for a drastically different game. So super fun. That is Oriflamme Ablaze. The next game is Startups, a small oink game where you play as investors trying to work on these startups, and it's your job to get the most cards of a specific color. If you have the most at the end, for each card your opponents have, you're going to be taking a point token from them. And the point tokens, when you flip them, they turn into 3s, so from 1 to 3. So it's pretty crazy. So it's a game that is ultimately very, very lucky. As you play, you're going to be drawing cards from the top of this deck, playing them in front of you, and then doing your best to hopefully edge out others by playing them at the correct times. It does feature this interesting mechanic where if you draw a card you don't want it, you can place it in the center, and that becomes another pile that people can draw from. But anytime somebody decides not to draw from that center pile, then they're going to have to put a coin on the cards that they skip. Now, I really like this game in lower player counts. I found that 3 and 4 are my favorites, just because you're getting a bit more control in the game and it's a lot less random because you're seeing more cards. So you're able to draw things, place them in the center, but then inversely, the center is not as big of an issue in smaller player count games because less cards are going there. So it's a very weird space where this game exists for me, but I do think it's fun. The strongest thing it has going for it is it's very quick, but I would rather play Arboretum or games in that similar vein than something like this. But still very fun. Startups. The next game is The Crew Mission Deep Sea. In this game, you play cooperative trick-taking. It's an evolution of the original Crew, which killed it with its awards last year, and I think it's a better game. It introduces these really cool mission cards where you're going to be dealing them based on the number of players and the challenge rating, and they give you these fun new goals. So lots of variability. You don't really have to dive into the mission book, but you still can, and it's a great one to get to the table. Now, I really like this style of game, but the only thing that I don't really like about it is I don't like playing a small game like this for like an hour. And that's kind of where this one falls into me. It reminds me of The Mind, where I'd like to play a couple of hands, but it's not one that I want to spend my entire game night playing. But it's still a great experience, a great time, great mechanisms. That's The Crew Mission Deep Sea. Up next is Hadrian's Wall, a wonderful roll and write experience. This has you playing as the Roman generals, and it's your job to line up your wall and prevent yourself from getting attacked by the Picts. Now, this game features actual resources that you're going to be gathering as you play. You have resource production, you'll be generating workers and building materials, and you'll be using them and allocating them on these giant sheets. So I find this really entertaining, really fun. It's one that I'm really enjoying, and it's just really satisfying to go back to and play. So having a great time with Hadrian's Wall. Up next, we have Dinosaur World. This is just an evolution of the Dinosaur Island system. You're going to be taking these tiles and putting them in front of you, though, and you'll be actually visiting those tiles, and I think that's a lot of fun. My favorite part of this game has to be the Jeep phase. I love the idea of taking your character and actually visiting these locations you're building, and then generating excitement based on the types of events that are going on, whether it be just visiting the different dino parks, or by participating in things like Triceratops ring toss, or T-Rex water skiing. There's a lot of fun stuff happening here, very thematic, very fun. That's Dinosaur World. And then following that, we have the Dinosaur Island Rawr and Write, one that I'm really, really enjoying. I actually prefer this over the original 2 Dinosaur Island games, and this one's a lot of fun. You have a simple worker placement dice drafting game where you'll take these dice and allocate them to a board, but then you also have a lot of this customization in the form of your assistants and these income buildings. These include things like merch, rides, and foods, a lot of familiar things from the base game, but I do like that every park phase, essentially. You're going to be running through all of these and just generating lots of resources and lots of income. Feels really good, and it's just a satisfying game to play. That's Dinosaur Island, Rawr and Right. Up next, we have Cascadia, a surprise hit, one that we're having a lot of fun with. Very calm, very simple game, but very pleasant to play. You're drafting pairs of tiles at a time. You've got a tile with locations on it and potential spots for animals, and then you have the animal itself. You're going to draft a pair of these, place them into your habitat, and do your best to match up things. Each of the animals score differently, but they all score similarly from game to game, so nothing's too crazy. Like the elks in groups, the salmon wants things around it, but you need to have a run of those salmon, and the birds have to deal with drawing line of sights to one another. So you have lots of cool effects that are all just slightly different and that are going to keep that replayability up. So it's a very calming, very pleasant experience, one that we're having a lot of fun with. That's Cascadia. Next, we have Las Vegas Royale. This game is a lot of fun. It's a great evolution of the original Las Vegas that adds these awesome little mini-games. And this is just a fantastic family game. So the way the mini-games works is, instead of having the high values of cash there, you can participate in these mini-games and also get those small cash at the end. I think there are 16 different mini-games, so you're going to run through 9 each game, so you're going to have that variability each time you play, and each of them has a very, very interesting effect that's going to affect the gameplay somehow. There are just so many fun casino games to discover, and I hope that you get a chance to try them. So that's Las Vegas Royale. Wonderful experience. Up next, we have Capital X2 Generations, the expansion. And my gosh, I love this thing. So Capital X2 Generations is one of my favorite games ever, and this offers more tiles, so more abilities for the cards, and it also offers a 5th player that you can play as. And the last thing that it offers is new purple cards. So these purple cards are going to be a new 5th suit, and this is going to add a little bit more flexibility to your games. You have now a purple suit that can be played to their column in the capital, and when you play there, it will copy the effect of one of the other tribes based on the specific card that's out. And then after a card is played to the capital, a new one comes out. But while that card's out, you can play a card of that color into your home base for scoring. So it's very interesting, very weird, and I think it really changes the way that you approach certain turns and certain plays. So I really like the system. I think it changes it up dramatically, but I don't think it's one that needs to get played all the time, which is awesome because you have that option there if you want to, and it's very solid if you do. So I think this expansion is great if it's just for those powers, or if you want to try that 5th color of the purple. So I think this is a wonderful expansion, bringing the player count up, and it's already such a good game. Oh, I love this one. Capital X2 Generations, that's the expansion. And then the other thing we got was the Pocket Edition. So the Pocket Edition is just a small, compact size of the game. It's got smaller cards. It doesn't have the player boards or anything like that. But this one, actually, it's really funny. I sleeved it, and it doesn't fit back in the pocket box. So I'm going to have to figure out a deck box, because our deck boxes we have also don't fit it. So unfortunately, it's not so pocket when you sleeve it, which was kind of the point, to have a portable version of the game. But it still keeps the same game, same mechanics. It reduces the amount of different powers that the different characters can have, which is kind of a negative, but the way it does it is to keep everything compact by eliminating tokens. So all of the roles that use tokens in the base game are pretty much gone. There are still some, but the way that they've eliminated the tokens is by turning them into cards or by shrinking the tokens themselves. So if you want that full experience, still get the base game. Strongly recommend it. This one is a little awkward because of its size. So that's Capital X2 Pocket. The next game is Dune House Secrets. Now, this is a Portal game in their detective line of games, which is a game where you play as investigators and you're going around reading cards and making decisions based off the information you find. This borrows that system but puts you in the Dune universe. You play as a group of characters who have joined a group of rebels, and it's your job to figure out kind of what's going on. Now, this game employs a very simple system where every time you do an action, you just move once down on the time track, and then you have this randomized system where you could potentially cause danger, which will decrease the amount of XP you get every round. So you can choose to stay away from dangerous activities in order to make sure that you're getting full experience every round, or you can do a little bit more risky plays to get potential information. So the system is very, very straightforward and very simplified over the original, and unfortunately, I actually don't think I'm enjoying this one as much as I'd like. It's cool, I really like the theme, but the verbology and the terminology here is so steeped into Dune lore. If you are not extremely familiar with the Dune universe and everything going on, you're going to feel lost a lot of the time. My wife and I are playing through this, and a lot of times we would just sit there and be like, what does that mean? Like, I don't remember this place. We have to take a lot of notes, and unfortunately a lot of this it's very hard to take this stuff out of context because I'm not familiar with the Dune universe. That being said, the system itself is also extremely simplified. There's a lot of things kind of missing from the original detective games that we really enjoyed. And the last important thing here is the app assistance in the game is kind of awkward because it'll give you like a video log, and you're like, oh cool, we get to watch a video. And a lot of the times the video log ends up just being like a slideshow of text, and you just have to read it again. So I feel like it could have just been on a card. You've got all these unnecessary steps when it comes to some of that. Now, some of them are videos, and that's kind of cool, but a lot of the times it's going to be just text on a video. It's kind of goofy. So that's Dune House Secrets. I'd recommend it if you are a huge Dune fan, if you already know a lot of the terminology and things in the universe, and also if you enjoy this cooperative system. So that is Dune House Secrets. Up next is Messina 1347. We had a friend of ours, Michael, bring a copy of this back to us from Essen, and we're having a blast with it. So it's a very interesting game with worker placement as its core mechanic. You're putting out characters on this large central board, and every round you'll lay them down, and then you'll move them from wherever they laid down. And so you're not only worried about the actions you're going to, but the location where you are, because you need that flexibility to move around. And the spaces on the board do fill up pretty quickly. So it can be pretty scary when you maybe get locked into a specific section and you have to spend some extra resources to get out. So you can always spend coins to move extra spaces. So it's a cool system here. I also really like this overseer system. Every time you basically rescue a citizen from the city, you're going to put them into this estate that you have, and you're going to be able to trigger lots of cool bonuses by moving these overseer tokens. This game is just production galore, having a lot of fun with it. It's got great pacing, it goes by pretty quickly. The setup for each round is a little bit fiddly, having to put out lots of tokens, a lot of upkeep, but overall one that I'm enjoying. That's Messina 1347. Up next, we have our pre-orders, starting with One Deck Galaxy. This is the sequel to One Deck Dungeon, a game that's leaving our library, unfortunately, because of just the pure randomness factor and the punishing aspect of poor rolls in the early game. Now, this does a great job at fixing these issues by giving you ways to spend your low dice, particularly early in the game, so that you have more reliable ways to level up your character as you play. So excited for this one, and the deluxe edition looks insane with all of its really over-the-top foil stamp tokens, plastic cards, etc. Another Kickstarter we're backing is Voidfall. This is by some trusted designers of mine, David Turchi and Nigel Buckle. I was super impressed by Imperium, so I'm excited to give this one a try. It looks like just a fantastic Euro-style game in space with a great theme. I love the different factions. I love the action system and the solo mode. I trust their solo designs. So I'm super excited to jump into this one. That is Voidfall. Up next, we have a pre-order from Level 99 Games, and this is Bullet Star. Bullet's one of my favorite games from this year, having an absolute blast continuing to play it, and Bullet Star is a new standalone sequel that just offers new characters that you can combine. Another cool thing, if you don't have it, if you're interested in the game, the deluxe tokens are available to purchase, so that's awesome. If you want to get started, I do recommend the deluxe tokens because they are so dang satisfying, these large, chunky discs. So super excited, loving Bullet. I love the different soundtracks that are available, and if you pre-order this one, you actually get the next soundtrack for free. So super, super fun, Bullet Star. Up next, we have Vagrant Song, a campaign boss battling style game with this wonderful art by Weird Games. I'm so excited for this one. I think the theme is fantastic, and I love the way that the action system works, where you're going to be actually pulling these tokens out of a bag, and I think that just sounds like a lot of fun. The AI system also does the same thing, so you're pulling tokens to kind of determine where these characters go. So I like that randomness. It sounds like a lot of fun, and the theme itself is really what's selling it for me. So excited for this one. That's Vagrant Song. Next, we have a campaign on GameFound. This is Too Many Bones Unbreakable, one of my favorite games ever, and this is just more content for that. Another standalone expansion with 2 gear locks, very similar to the vein of Too Many Bones Undertow, but this one has you instead underground with the lava here. So the board itself actually has lava tokens that are going to be flipping as they get destroyed as you play. So right off the bat, that's super exciting and fun, but it also is just going to offer us more of the content that we love. So if you enjoy this style of game, give it a try, and then if you really like it, back the Kickstarter. It is very expensive, so you definitely want to give this one probably a try before you buy, but this is my highest recommendation. I love this game. It's my favorite style of this adventure type of game. So amazing game. That's Too Many Bones. And then up next, we have 2 pre-orders from Fantasy Flight Games. We've got the Hero Pack for Vision, so very excited for this. He is the ultimate android with his phasing mechanic, and I like that he's going to be introducing more protection cards to the game. I love when protection cards get buffs because ultimately a lot of protection cards are just not that exciting to play, particularly in the solo modes, and this is just super exciting. I really like the additions of the cards from Quicksilver, and I can't wait to see what they do with these additions from Vision. And then the last game on the list is the new scenario for Arkham Horror, the card game, Machinations Through Time. And I don't really want to know a lot about this. All I know is that this is a new standalone scenario, and that's all I want to know, because this is a completely scenario-driven game where that first playthrough, you kind of want to go in blind, so I'm super excited to try it out. So got a cool looking aesthetic here. Let's do it. Super excited. Arkham Horror, the card game. Amazing cooperative game where you play as investigators, trouncing around and trying to find out mysteries and whatnot. And I'm just excited for what this one has in store. So don't really want to look too much into it, but always happy to play more Arkham Horror content. So super cool. That's Arkham Horror, the card game. And those are the games that entered the library or that we pre-ordered in October of 2021. What games did you add to your collection? What games are you excited to play in this upcoming month? For us, we have some new games. Western Legends is going to be coming in, the new role player things. We're super excited to try and get our hands on these. So that's everything. Thank you so much for watching. SideGame Strong.